I went from 0 to multiple six figures in a short period of time without burnout. And I know that sounds unbelievable because we are taught the complete opposite. We're taught that success only comes from working hard, hustling, doing all the things, and pushing through. But here's what neuroscience has to say. Hustling does not create wealth. In fact, hustling and being busy all the time and doing all the things is survival mode. I know this because I lived it. My name is Giselle Baumet. I have a background in applied neuroscience at the master's level, and I get to work with brilliant women entrepreneurs as I help them to open up to abundance by removing the blocks that prevent it. There was a time when I worked harder than anyone else. Yes, I was listening to all of the manifestation videos and the books, everything, you name it, I was listening to manifestation. At the same time, I was doing all the things, working hard to build a consistent, at ease, in my life purpose business. And that wasn't happening. Instead, it was inconsistency. I was tired. I would get overwhelmed. I would get burnt out. I wasn't doing the things that I love, and I definitely did not have ease with abundance in money at the same time. In fact, I used to worry about what 3 months from now would look like, what 6 months would look like, because of the feast and the famine, that money in, money out that was happening in my life. And all of that was really just an expression of what was happening within. And then what happened is that I realized that doing more was not actually working, that trying all the manifestation techniques was not giving me consistency. I had to do deeper work. And that's where neuroscience came in and nervous system regulation. It was the combination of those two that easily, and I'm talking a very short period of time, made me a top 5% earner. And it's the combination of those two that's also leading me to become a top 1% earner. Neuroscience and nervous system regulation is what changed my identity, because money doesn't follow what you say. Money follows who you are. And no amount of manifestation techniques was going to change my identity if I didn't start with my brain and if I didn't support it with my nervous system. This part is really important for you to understand. Okay, this is the unlock. What do I mean by identity in neuroscience? Because this is not your self-concept. This is not act as if. Your identity doesn't just describe who you are. It's a set of your neural pathways in your brain. That's your identity. Essentially, your repeated thoughts, your repeated emotions, and your behavior are going to create circuits in your brain that build your identity. And again, remember, money follows your identity. Your self-concept is just the result of all that. It is who you believe you are at a deep level, not just consciously. So the words that you say often tend to be related to who you think you are. I'm overwhelmed. I'm behind. No one's gonna get this. It's a lot of work. I barely have clients. What if no one buys? I can't break my income ceiling. Those are hints of who you think you are. Listen to your words. And your nervous system will also come into play with this. Your nervous system's first job is to keep you safe. Now, that safe is relative because familiarity is what it will choose. Meaning, if you keep finding yourself in a similar reality, inconsistency when it comes to money in, money out, you're working really hard on your business and still not living in abundance with ease, not burnout, not overwhelm. Your familiarity is where you currently are. And your nervous system thinks that is your safety zone. When you try to get yourself out of that safety zone, your nervous system reacts accordingly. So that's why saying affirmations like, I make $100,000 a month, when right now you're at maybe $15,000 or $20,000 a month. If your nervous system doesn't see that new amount as safe of your familiarity, then it will try to sabotage it. Do more affirmations, you do more techniques, you do more practices, you throw things at it thinking, if I do more, I'll get the results. But the actual work to do, and the work that I did, and I work with the women closely in my mastermind, is decoding, repatterning, and stabilizing your identity. The first step is decoding. If you do not decode, you're going to repeat the same cycle over and over and over again. So let's start with that. Most people do not realize how much of their lives is in autopilot. Most people also do not realize their blind spots. The coding that's part of their lives all along their storyline that they've been operating for most of their lives in autopilot. Most people are really not aware of that. And the reason why I know is this. When I work with the women in my mastermind, I do a VIP session with each of them one-on-one individually. The most brilliant woman entrepreneur will still not be able to recognize their coding. You'll recognize some of it. The obvious ones will come through, but it's the ones on autopilot that are hard to recognize. So it often does mean working closer with someone. But let me give you one way that you can start to bring some of this to surface. For me, when I really focused on what thoughts I had often, and I spent very intentional time noticing my thoughts, noticing my words, and I picked up on a pattern. I did not, at the time, equate ease with money abundance. And I started to pick up on that by just paying attention to my words and to my repeated thoughts. And you might need to do it for a couple weeks consistently so that you can pick up on the pattern. Be aware. Don't trick yourself. Don't lie to yourself. We're looking for your raw thoughts, for your raw words. Be honest with yourself. That's the only way you're going to pick up on the pattern. The next thing that I did was repattering. Now, this is where it gets interesting. This is often where all the other manifestation techniques completely fail. Most of the time, you're trying to override your thoughts with affirmations. I am rich. I'm more than enough. I am abundant. I make $1 million next year. But it doesn't mean anything, because if your nervous system does not see those things as safe for you, it really is just words. And instead of wiring your brain for abundance, it actually wires it for resistance. It pushes it away. So it's not about forcing a new identity. I'm going to repeat that again. It is not about forcing a new identity. It's by creating safety first. I did that by daily nervous system regulation practices. I specialize in breath work, so that's what I did. Breath work is somatic. It can also be like a meditation, and it works really well for regulating your nervous system, little by little, because this takes time. I was rewiring my brain. I was creating new neural pathways, which means I was shifting my identity with a full understanding that money follows identity, and your identity is your neural pathways. And then this. Stabilize it all. This is where a lot of people drop off. This is why they continue to experience the inconsistency and the ups and the downs, or the overwhelm and the burnout despite success. But you must stabilize it all for it to stick. And how do you do that? Repetition in real life context. So I asked myself regularly, ask the woman who is a top 5% earner. What do I do today? What decisions would I make today? That is not the same as what do I need to do to make more money? Instead is ask that wealthy woman, what choices do I make today? In fact, it carries so much so that I don't work with everyone. I only work with the right kind of woman entrepreneur who's ready in all ways to embody the identity of $10,000 to $100,000 months with ease. And that's not everybody. I'm very particular about who I invite into my mastermind. That is not from the energy of desperation. So be mindful of that. And I trusted myself to do less and to rest. In fact, I started to measure success by how much ease I have in my life until it wasn't something that I was trying to do, it just was. And you know what? I was that identity before it became my reality. Remember that. You become before you see the results, not the other way around. And I went from zero, from barely ever making it, to becoming a top 5% earner. And this is the same process that I teach to the women and mentor the women in my mastermind. That's why for the women that apply what I teach and that I mentor, they'll have things like coming in and not making enough in their businesses to selling out an offer and being delighted by how much it feels like ease. Being thrilled at being able to make the most money you've ever made and how much easier it was to do that. It's the decoding, repatterning, and stabilizing at a deeper core root. It really is about becoming the woman your brain already believes to be wealthy, because you are majestic. You are so much more powerful than you realize. And I cannot wait for you to realize it.